What's really exciting is when students come to the classroom and they get to offer something new that I have not experienced. They get to teach me about new music or new cool creative projects that they're doing. And they get to teach me about what's going on in the world that I may not know about because I'm in my little bubble of work and my own life.
That's Lauren Bond, and this is the Powerful Ladies Podcast. Hey guys, I'm your host, Kara Duffy, and this is the Powerful Ladies Podcast, where I invite my favorite humans, the awesome, the up to something, and the extraordinary to come and share their story. I hope that you'll be left entertained, inspired, and moved to take action towards living your most powerful life. Lauren Bond is a good friend of mine, a new mom, and an English professor teaching at the community college and university levels. She's married to Matt, who's also an English professor. And when they got engaged, they made a commitment not just to each other, but also to health and fitness. On this episode, we discuss the realities of being a teacher today, if it's true that universities are pushing a liberal agenda, why teaching is one of the best career paths available, and what it looks like to take on fitness as a couple. All that and so much more coming up, but first. Hey guys, I'm so excited that you are here today to listen to another episode of the Powerful Ladies Podcast. It's because of you guys that we are able to exist and survive and make this great content and have these great conversations. One way that you can really help us out is to go to thepowerfulladies.com and sign up for our newsletter. You will get great information and tips about once a month to know when we're having an awesome sale, when there's a great new course coming out, and just to hear all the cool stuff we're doing. It's the first place to learn about all the events and the things that we're up to. So please subscribe today. Welcome to the Powerful Ladies Podcast.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here, even remotely. I'm excited to be talking to you about this and just participating in your podcast, which is, I don't know, one of the coolest things that I have heard any of my friends doing. So, yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm blushing. Thank you. Well, let's start by telling the audience your name and what you're up to.
Yeah, so my name is Lauren Bond, and I am a college professor. I teach English at several different colleges. I teach at San Bernardino Valley College, Moreno Valley College. Both of those are JCs in the Inland Empire. And I also teach as an adjunct at the University of Redlands, which is a 4-year college, private college. So what am I up to today? Aside from preparing for the podcast, I've just been grading like mad. So it's been really nice actually to use this weekend where I had a lot of free time to kind of catch up on grading and spend time prepping and all of that. We are pretty much in the middle of the semester now and kind of hitting our busiest point. So that's what I've been doing today. So yeah.
And in addition, you're a wife and a mom to be.
Yes. Yeah. My husband, Matthew, he's actually out away right now at a bachelor party out in Bishop in Mammoth. And he's also a writing teacher. And I am pregnant. So I'm almost 7 months pregnant, and this is going to be our first child, so pretty excited about that whole new adventure.
I'm excited that you are due the same time as our other friend Danae and Travis are due, just because it seems like it was a 1, 2, 3, everyone got pregnant at once, and I was like, no way. They say this happens, and it happened without anyone trying.
Yeah, I have. In addition to Danae, I have maybe 5 or 6 other friends who are currently pregnant, and then one who just gave birth. So something's in the water. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, Danae and I are due almost exactly the same day. I mean, it's kind of hard to, for us and for doctors to know exactly what day, but we're essentially due the same exact time. So that's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is. So let's start at the beginning of your journey. Where are you from and where did you grow up?
So I've always been a Southern California girl. I was born in Long Beach, but my parents moved to Moreno Valley when I was about 2. They too had kind of been moving around their whole lives for various reasons across the U.S. So when they got together and decided to have kids, they didn't want that for me, and then eventually for my brother. So and it's funny because I'm someone who loves traveling, and I say that now, so I probably would have been okay with always moving, but I can't really say that because I had the luxury of, or the privilege to sort of grow up in one town most of my life and have that stability. So they decided to buy a home in Moreno Valley when I was very young, and my mom has been a teacher since she was 22, and my dad, he's had a couple of careers and they kind of overlap. So he, at a young age, or I should say as a young man, he became very interested in golf and tried out for the PGA, like the actual association. He was never a touring pro, but he has been a teaching pro since his late 20s, I believe. And then when I was pretty young, he actually started teaching elementary school as well. So I'm the child of 2 teachers. So I think it kind of makes sense that I became a teacher as well.
Yep.
Trying to think of some other like things about myself when I was young. I was really energetic, and I guess that probably is how you could still describe me. I've always had a lot of interest, and I played sports when I was young. I played softball for many, many years and dabbled in some other sports like soccer, even though I don't feel like I was very good at it. I played all throughout middle school, just, like on AYSO. It was just a fun thing to do in the fall, but I definitely had no hopes of becoming a professional soccer player. Even though, softball I felt like I was really good at, and I pursued it for a long time. The only reason I stopped playing in high school was because I was also interested in music and was in band. Mm-hmm. And I felt that out of trying to divide my time with being a good student and playing sports and playing music, that I kind of had to choose 2 out of the 3. I just didn't feel like I had the time. Mm-hmm. So I ended up stop playing softball. And that was a hard decision to make because I ultimately didn't pursue music beyond my sophomore year of high school either. And I ended up just focusing on school, which is maybe not a bad thing in and of itself, but I think I always ended up missing playing softball for the rest of my high school career and maybe even in college. I think I missed that athletic aspect quite a bit.
Well, one of the things that I love about you and Matt is the commitment that you guys made when you got engaged about not just getting fit for your wedding, but being committed to a fit lifestyle. How did you guys have that conversation, and what has that looked like in reality?
You have such a good memory. We called it the marriage diet instead of the wedding diet. So Matt and I both met when we were pretty young. I was 20, he was 22, I think, or I just turned 23. And I think we were just at that turning point in our lives where we both had stopped being kind of fit and active. He was just starting graduate school, and I was just figuring out or learning that there's more to life than just going to school. I started, going to parties and kickbacks, and we became very social, but we kind of felt our health was not a priority. So when we got together, since we both had interest in being healthy and working out, we decided, hey, we have our whole lives together. Let's do something about that. So he had always been a runner, and I never saw myself as much of a runner, as I said. And I do have asthma, which is kind of the excuse I used for a long time. It's exercise induced for sure. So it is harder for me at first when I start running specifically to kind of breathe. But he and I would go on these late night runs. I mean, when I say late night, I mean like 1 a.m. kind of runs. We were very much night owls at the time. And so we would, at the end of the day, go for maybe a midnight or a 1 a.m. run together. And he kind of trained me for that. He would hang back and run with me and kind of push me and encourage me. And I started to really value what running could do. And I think the one thing that I maybe brought to the relationship in terms of health at that point was cooking, because I've always had an interest in cooking and kind of just trying new things in the kitchen. And I don't think I didn't really have a great diet growing up. I ate a lot of fast food and was always on the run. Mm-hmm. But I knew that it was important to sort of get my nutrition in order. And I think that's where a lot of my creativity sort of occurs, in the kitchen. Mm-hmm. So I think that was just a point of us living together on our own, kind of recognizing that we needed to take care of ourselves for the long haul. And that's kind of where it started. Yeah.
And you've kept up with it.
Yeah, we have. That was 11 years ago now. And since then, we have run a handful of half marathons. I never thought I would be running a half marathon.
Yeah.
I don't know if I ever will have it in me to do a full marathon, but I do like training and pushing myself to get to that 13-mile mark. We've done a handful. We've done 3 Tough Mudders, mm-hmm. 2 or 3 of those, I think, and then a Spartan Beast. And we've done a handful of smaller mud runs. I really like the mud runs because you're not always running just for 13 miles straight or whatever that is. You are doing a bunch of obstacles and crawling in mud and under barbed wire and jumping into giant bins of ice water. Mm-hmm. So to me, I kind of like that challenge. And we have a handful of other activities we like to do. We rock climb and we do yoga and weight lift. So I think I could talk about that forever, but even though that's not my career, fitness is definitely just something that we really try to do, and we try to exercise and get into that pattern, at least 3 days a week, if not more.
Do you guys do a lot of your training and working out together, or are you just more holding each other accountable to make sure that you are keeping to whatever routine you're committed to?
That's a good question. We've had times where one of us was really into it and the other person was kind of like not, and we were kind of going solo. But lately, I think our goal generally is to work out together. Usually when we go for runs now, we go separately. Mm-hmm. Like we might start together and warm up, and then he takes off because he is a much faster runner than I am. And if we're going to be pushing ourselves, we have to go separately. Mm-hmm. But when we go to the gym, we go together. We might be on different machines or lifting different weights, of course, but we try to go to the gym together as much as possible. We try to take yoga classes together. And I think I don't know, a big part of it is holding each other accountable, and that's why we like to go together. But mm-hmm. we also have very similar schedules.
Yeah.
That works out.
Well, I think it's nice whenever a couple can incorporate fitness and healthy habits as part of your together time as well, because it's so easy to be busy and then add fitness in as another thing you have to do in the day when you don't get to, and it takes away from family. When if you do it together, it can almost be like literally a hot date, right? Of working out together.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we can, it's carving time out together doesn't have to result in just going to the movies. As much as we like doing that, we can kind of have like these dates together to go to the gym, and then we often will stop at the grocery store afterwards and pick up food to make dinner together. And so it's a lot of that sort of couples time, but doing things that we enjoy, that we could easily do separately, but we decide not to.
Yep. So how did you decide to become a professor, and why English?
I wasn't, so going back to when I was little, I have this memory of doing this, and my mom, I think, has pictures, and I'm sure she has videos of me lining up all of my animals in my room. And like, I had a little desk, and they would be at the desk, and I'd be teaching them something.
Yep.
So
we had the same childhood. Yep.
Yeah, I think I didn't know it at the time, but I always kind of had that approach to life. I think really what it comes down to is, no matter what subject it was, I love learning new things, and then I like sharing that information with people. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't always I don't think it had to be in the format, sort of the traditional classroom format. It just kind of turned out that way. But I just really like sharing experiences with people where there's a focus on learning something and then talking about it. So I think that I kind of gravitated toward those kinds of activities. Mm-hmm. And my very first job was as a private tutor when I was in high school. And I actually tutored in math. Not that I could tell you very much about math anymore. But I tutored in, I think, pre-algebra and geometry and algebra, and maybe algebra 2. And I would go to classmates' houses and, a couple times a week and get paid that way. I started in college. I started tutoring as an avid tutor. Mm-hmm. So I went back to my old high school, which had an avid program. And I was certified as an avid tutor, did a training for that, and I started tutoring. I think maybe it just kind of came easy to me, so that's why I found myself doing that. And then but I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do for a career. And when I met Matt, he had just started a PhD program in English at UC Riverside. One of his professors, who he was really close with, was going to be teaching a class, a literature class on James Joyce's Ulysses. And I was a junior in college at that time, and I hadn't taken any English classes in college. I kind of had tested out of some of the writing courses. Mm-hmm. So when I spoke to Matt and I spoke to his professor, they really encouraged me, hey, you have electives, take an English course, like just take it for fun. And I took that English lit course, and I remembered how much I loved reading. Yep. And how much I just loved fiction and analyzing fiction. And I actually, at that point, decided to pick up a minor in English just because I liked it. And then when I was getting close to graduating, I still had no idea what I was going to do. My major was in anthropology, but I didn't really see myself pursuing that any further. It was interesting to me, but I didn't really see myself becoming an anthropologist. Mm-hmm. So I think I hit that roadblock that a lot of young people hit when they're getting ready to graduate from college. They're like, I have no idea what I'm going to do. Yeah. So I went to grad school, which is, I think, pretty common for a lot of people. I was like, I'm just going to study more. I'm not ready to go out into the real world, and I'm just going to take more classes. And I ended up going to Cal State Fullerton for English. And that's where I learned that I really could see myself not teaching literature, but teaching reading and writing at the college level. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of by happenstance how I got to where I am today.
I didn't realize how much we had in common. So for everyone listening, you and I have been friends for about 5 years now. Yeah. Your husband and my boyfriend literally lived on the same street when they were like 5. And
I think Jesse is the oldest person Matt knows out of our current friends, actually.
yeah, it's crazy how far some of these guys go back, and them in particular. So, I've known you through that, and we have a really great social circle, and there's a lot of couples, and I love that as much as the guys get along, the women do too, and we're all just kind of friends together. And I didn't realize until you're sharing your story how much our stories are aligned in regards to setting up our animals and giving classes and telling them what to do. And, and my minor was anthropology because I love that stuff. Like I
didn't realize that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I keep debating going back and getting a PhD in it because either that or like a more like social economics approach, because I love looking at the patterns of people in particular and where they go and why and how that impacts them. And honestly, it's why I'm doing this, because I love hearing the examples of like how people ended up here and how not just literally where they ended up, but mentally and spiritually and community wise, like how it all comes together and keeps moving. Because it's not, there's always the people that break the statistics, and those are the people I find most fascinating. Like, how did you get out?
I think the human interest part.
Yes.
I mean, you're right. That's what you're doing with this podcast, and that's what you're doing with the other aspects of your project. But that human interest angle is something that, I think that makes so much sense. Why you would be drawn to this sort of area.
And I think that's why I love reading. Like I do like fiction, but I tend to end up reading more nonfiction or autobiographies. And there's just, there's people are fascinating, and there's so many great stories out there, whether they came from someone's beautiful mind or they were reality.
Yeah. Do you find yourself reading a lot of nonfiction these days?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, me too.
I'm actually hungry for good fiction, so I've started going back and going through classics I haven't read, and just like going back into that space, because there's a lot of, for me to like a nonfiction book, it takes a lot. So I can be a little bit of a butthead in regards to what I like to read, partly because I have a story. Like there's so much to learn. I don't want to just read. I want to learn and read. So
sometimes I feel like reading fiction, obviously if it's a really enjoyable story, you become immersed in that world. But
yes.
With nonfiction, it's more of, I feel like there's more of an option for learning something new, whether it's about a person or an idea or an event. Or like how to grow ourselves, that self-help category, even if that's not the word that I might use. I think that that's what kind of I'm drawn to lately as well.
Well, obviously there's so many books I recommend. We have a whole section on thepowerfulladies.com that's all tools and resources relating to books. We have, of course, everything else under the sun as well, but books is the part that I'm passionate about, because I love the fact that if you know how to read, you can learn and meet and travel like anywhere you want. And there's been quite a few guests I've had on the podcast who don't like reading. And I'm like, what about audiobooks? They're like, no. And I am like, I'm baffled. Like I have nothing else to say. And I imagine as a professor for college students, where an English class is a requirement often, and you're probably, for people who it's required for, are not the people like you and I who were nerding out and reading and liking to do English.
Yeah.
It's for people who maybe struggled in it. So how do you handle that as a person who loves reading when you meet people that hate English, hate writing, hate reading?
Yeah, that's exactly the big question that we have to answer as educators in English specifically. I have so many students that have said that they've never read a book ever. I mean, it seems kind of mind-blowing because you're supposed to have read books in high school and middle school and elementary school. But I think that a lot of people, young people especially, just don't connect with a lot of the required reading, so they just don't do it. Or they feel like they did it, but they didn't really understand it, so they don't really count that as having read books.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then often we see students who struggle with, of course, the writing aspect because they're not readers. And the only texts that they really see are very short pieces, not always pieces written very eloquently. And so they're kind of just skimming the surface of text and not really diving into the material the way that you and I and other avid readers really have had in terms of experience. So really the key is to try to figure out, well, what kind of books can I share with my students that I think they would really like? When I assign books, a lot of what we do is actually nonfiction in college composition courses now. And so I try to choose topics that are what I think are interesting to me and I'm very passionate about, but also that I think are relatable to a wide variety of people. And then I try to find articles and longer texts that I think students will be able to dive into and at least see themselves in some place, or at least they'll be able to learn something from. Because if they don't find it interesting, if I can't do that, or at least offer that partially, then the same thing happens. And then they don't really connect with the reading and they don't really do it. And they don't really grow as readers and writers. Ultimately don't pass the course, or they do, but they keep on struggling quite a bit.
What's a book that you've provided that has really gotten the class excited recently?
So let's see. In my freshman 101 level courses, I've chosen the past couple of years, I've chosen to write about the theme of food. Just like it started off as a very broad topic of food because I like food and I like that topic. And it's obviously something that everyone has to have. And a lot of people, everybody has something to say about it. So I read, I think it was a year ago, but I read a book called Eating Animals by Jonathan Safran Foer.
Okay.
And it is a book, yes, about eating animals. It's not a book necessarily, it's not an argument for vegetarianism per se, but ultimately he wrote that book because when he found out he was going to be a father, he was like, what do I feed my son? Like, he was always interested in food, but he wasn't really sure, or he wasn't always committed to a particular diet or lifestyle. And when he decided he was going to have to answer these big questions for his child, he decided to investigate our food system. And so the focus of that book is all of the information he learned about the way specifically animals are raised in our country in the industrialized food system.
Which is horrifying most of the time. Which
is horrifying. It's horrifying just to read about it. Let alone watch videos, undercover videos of what goes on in our food system. But just reading about it itself is eye-opening. And so that's one of the few books that I teach in my freshman 101 class. And I let my students know ahead of time, if you're going to take me for this course, it is about reading and writing, but the topic is food, and we are going to be learning things that are really going to make you see food differently. So that's the warning before they take the class, because not everybody is ready for that, or not everybody wants to know what's in their food or how animals specifically are raised or what happens to the environment. But I think so many of my students appreciate that, and I think most of them end up reading the whole book because it is interesting and it's fairly easy to read. It's written in the first person and it's journalistic reporting. So even though there was a lot of information and facts and all these statistics about our food system, it's really accessible, I think, to people of all levels. Yeah, there's a documentary that just came out. I haven't watched it yet, but there's a documentary called Eating Animals. I think it's on Netflix, and it is specifically about that book or the information in the book. So that's kind of my personal, project is to kind of watch that and maybe some of the other documentaries that are on Netflix related to food.
I'm obsessed with them all. Like, I'm excited that you said that there was a new one that came out because I think I've watched them all, whether it's like pro-vegan, pro-carnivore, keto, anti-fast food, anti-sugar, why alcohol is bad. Like, I've watched all of them because I find it so fascinating. Yeah, because they're all backed by different versions of science and different versions of reporting. Right. And I'm a firm believer in, get all the information from the different sources, and somewhere in the middle is like the truth. So I love it. I wish there were more food-based documentaries available so I could watch more of them, at least well-made ones. There've been a few that I've started and been like, nope.
I think there will be. I agree. I think we will continue to see more and more, but especially if you watched all of them. But yeah, you should watch Eating Animals. I mean, I say that without having watched it myself, but I'm sure it's good. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think. Oh, have you seen What the Health?
Yes, I love that one.
Is it okay? Would you recommend it then?
Oh yeah, it's one of the best ones.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, that's the one that's the one that my students have seen and I haven't, and I really feel like I should. That's my next step. I've done some of the reading, but now I need to watch documentaries because I feel like they really help tell a story differently than the books do or just articles. Mm-hmm. They really, and they just provide the images and the faces to the people involved in this sort of research, and in the various industries. You have all the interviews with the farmers, and
yes,
I feel like it's compelling in a different way, and I think that would be really that's maybe my summer project.
Yeah, very cool. I know Jesse gets so frustrated because if I choose between being entertained or learning something, I always choose learning something. So if we're gonna sit down together and watch TV, I'm always like, a documentary? Can we learn something? And he's like, can't we just watch a war movie or something else? And then
can't we just watch a romantic comedy or something?
Right, which I wouldn't necessarily be against, but if there's a choice of, they have so much information now on whether it's YouTube that we're watching things on or Netflix of learning something fascinating. Even I love right now where Will Smith is narrating the Strange Blue Planet, I think it's called, or I'm messing it up, but it's on Netflix. He's the host, and it's talking about different parts of how the Earth works, and from the point of view of astronauts who have seen it from space and the impact that's made on their life. But it's also it's a very digestible way to learn about a lot of science that we don't talk about a lot. It's called One Strange Rock.
One Strange Rock. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Jordan.
And that's on Netflix?
Yes, it's awesome.
Okay. That's okay. I'll check that out.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing.
Well, one of the things that I really wanted to talk to you about, because it's a passion of mine, is the education system in the U.S. and what works, where it's broken, and you being a professor, especially for freshmen, and seeing kind of what is delivered to you. What surprises you, and where do you see opportunities for improvements?
In the past few years, I've been teaching 8 years. I think this is my 8th year teaching college. And the thing that often comes up in conversations with colleagues is, a lot of students aren't prepared. And that I think that especially happens at the community college level because community college is open to anyone. And a lot of students are what we call returning students. So they've taken breaks, or they've worked, or they've, I guess that's about it. They've just some of them have taken huge breaks. Or they never attended college, and now they're in their 40s, 50s, or 60s, and they're attending college. So for some of those students, they just feel like it's been ages since they've been students, and they feel very behind, and have forgotten a lot of information. And then you have other students who, for whatever reason, decided to go to community college. It could be because they they didn't take all the required courses to get into a four-year university straight out of high school, or they just didn't have the grades. But they feel compelled to go to school for various reasons, either because social pressures, like you have to go to school, or the family pressures, or they just don't know what else to do, so they go to college. And so, especially at the community colleges, we see just students with a variety of abilities, writing abilities initially. And there's always a question of, well, how do we quote unquote, catch up some of the students who really struggle with writing, with generating ideas. They struggle with understanding main ideas in whatever they're reading. Maybe their grammar is, their sentence structure is sort of difficult to read, and we have to help them articulate better. So the question is, well, what happened? And I think at the college level, we kind of moved away from trying to answer what happened and just what can we do now to make them feel prepared and to help students feel more confident as readers and writers, and to help them understand how to do academic research at the college level. So I think that now a lot of us are a little less concerned about what happened. That's kind of being answered by K through 12 educators with the Common Core that has sort of taken place the past few years.
And for people who don't know, what is Common Core?
Common Core, and I don't know that much about it myself, but Common Core is kind of a national reform of education that's taken the place of No Child Left Behind. Okay. So it's a lot of changes in the actual required curriculum of kindergarten through high school. And it was developed by educators themselves, it was kind of like, from what I understand, taken upon by elementary school teachers, middle school, high school teachers who wanted to develop curriculum that they thought would actually better prepare students to go to college. I think K through 12 educators were very aware that a lot of the students were graduating very unprepared, and when they got to college, they were really struggling. And at the college level, there was this idea that we're not going to change our standards. So what happened is a lot of students just really, really struggled in college and would drop out, or they would just be there for years trying to catch up to meet that high standard of college. So Common Core that's the answer to what's going wrong at the lower level and how do we better prepare students to get to college and succeed. And what we've been doing on the college side is trying to accelerate, how should I say this? Try to accelerate what the students are actually doing in the classrooms, because a lot of students are placed in what are called remedial classes, where they have to do all the catching up. And what we've also found is those students, they take all these remedial classes for 3 years or so, and then they get to take their general ed. And by the time they graduate from college, some people are in college for a handful of years, like 5, 6, 7 years. And that's not really helpful. Again, because a lot of students just end up dropping out because of just how long it's taking, and they're discouraged.
And maybe bored.
And very bored, because, it's just not motivating to feel like I spent all this time in school and now I'm in college and I'm going to be here forever. And they're not really taking classes they're interested in. They're taking all of those required courses. So I feel like I've lost the thread a little bit. What was your original question?
What's surprising you about the students that you see, and where do you see there could be improvements in the education system?
So I think we are seeing a lot of improvement. What's happened recently in California is there was this legislation that was passed called AB 705. And that legislation basically it requires colleges, community colleges especially, it requires colleges to essentially catch students up as quickly as possible. And that means changing the curriculum. That means having more interesting courses and having more challenging courses right off the bat for students. It's meant to prevent students from dropping out those first couple of years because they're stuck in the remedial classes.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is probably one of the largest changes that we're seeing. And it's a lot of work, but in my actual classroom, I'm seeing huge improvement. So I will get students who tested fairly low in terms of reading and writing skills, and they come into the classroom and they feel like I'm an awful writer, I'm a slow reader, or I can't find anything interesting to read. I suck at English.
Yeah.
And I, on the one hand, know that some of their skills are going to be a little bit lower and they're going to struggle in certain areas. But if I can just get them to write a lot and to read a lot, and for us to have kind of higher-minded conversations about the reading, I get more student engagement, and then those students start to see themselves like, oh, actually, I can write. Actually, I do have something to say.
Mm-hmm.
And they start producing college level, freshman 101 level essays, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages, when previously they were only writing a paragraph or two. And so I think the increased motivation and paying attention to what really prevents students from succeeding, there's been a lot of work with that lately at the college level. And I feel like we're going to start seeing the results in the next few years.
I think in any area, whether it's reading or writing or math, sciences, anywhere where you have an idea in your head that you're not good at something, or the first material has been presented to you by maybe a less capable teacher, or at least one that didn't match with your learning style. I mean, I would assume the first struggle is just getting you out of that mindset, kind of like what you're doing with your students, because there's what you're saying to yourself about it. And then there's also the disconnect of not knowing how it's going to apply for things that you actually care about. Like
that's the biggest thing, like relatability and what you just said about mindset, like actually having the mindset that I can do this and I'm not just this person who is awful at school or awful at reading or writing. Like I actually have the ability within myself to do this. I just have to learn some of the techniques to do it. And then I need to put it to practice. Yeah, I think you really hit that on the head. I think that's like the number one strategy as an educator, is to get students to see that about themselves.
I feel really lucky because in my own education experience, when in 4th grade, I got tested for a gifted program that they were doing where we were in Philadelphia. And it didn't occur to me as any big thing, but anyone who qualified got to go to this special class once a day. And I never understood why every class wasn't taught this way, because it was actually more inclusive, because we would pick a topic for the semester and we would do more hands-on things. We would do more discussions. We were treated a little bit more like adults. And I'm like, why is every class not like this? Like, there's no reason why this should be for people who scored something in a certain quiz. But it was like all inclusive learning where you got to ask questions and argue, and they encourage you to challenge the first thing you saw, and they encouraged you to be creative, and like no question was frowned upon unless it was like, okay, no more. That's like the third question, and that's like really a dirty humor joke. Like we have to move on. But to me, it was so cool to see that you got excited about learning about stuff again, because it wasn't just sitting there and taking notes. And then from that, like I think back to my next experience of being in college and trying to figure out using Excel. And like I didn't understand what like the data set that we were working with. So I never got like how Excel worked until I started using it at work. And now like I'm a junkie for spreadsheets because they allow you to do so many things easier and faster. And, and so it blows my mind that the things I hated between statistics and Excel classes, because of how they were taught, where no one explained to me, like no one started by what you care about and then showed me how this could apply and make it faster, cooler, better. Instead, they just said like, here's a data set about, car sales parts. And you're like, I don't give a fuck about car sales parts. Like, why do I care about how these have to sort? Plus, you're not in the business, so you don't really know the logic behind why. You're just learning how to move things around a spreadsheet. And that's just so boring. Like, my personal opinion is that we are often, especially for younger people, like kids, like I worry from my own personal experiences that we don't make it entertaining enough. And especially when you look at how many sources there are today for learning things, there's a lot of competition for keeping people's attention. And I hope that education is staying with that pace.
I think that's exactly right. I mean, there has to be a balance between being entertained and learning.
Yes.
Because, that it just can't be just a whole litany of concepts and formulas and tools that don't really have context that's provided for you. So you're right. Good teachers are the ones that can contextualize the material and say, let's look at the big picture first or second, but we need to look at the big picture at some point and see how it like connects to other ideas and things that you've learned. And, we as learners, we need to be able to recognize how it's related in our own lives. But it helps so much to have, a teacher up there offering you different perspectives and helping you really see how they're connected. Like it's just here's the information and here are the different patterns that we could put the information in, or the different skill sets, and you can see the different uses. I mean, I felt that way with calculus. I took calculus in high school. And like I said earlier, I was always decent at like doing computations. I was good in math, whatever that meant, until taking pre-calculus and calculus in high school, because then I just kind of lost the context. I didn't really understand what I was doing other than just memorizing formulas and doing computations. And to this day, I feel like, I couldn't tell you what it's used for. I know it's useful, not in my field, but it is a useful thing, but I don't really know what it's for still. And I feel like that was the point where I kind of didn't see the point in my life. And that was the last math class I ever took. So,
I just listened to an amazing TED Radio Hour podcast where the topic is Don't Fear Math. And it's so great because you have these people who love math and they get how it describes the world. And one guy called it math, the notes that plays the symphony of the universe.
Right? That sounds really cool.
Well, right, because like things that we think are cool, like all like the fractal images and what's it called? The where the flower and the shell, like everything has the same.
It's the Fibonacci sequence?
Yes, the Fibonacci sequence. Like that's cool, and it's all math.
Yeah, and how you described it just now, how it's a way of understanding our universe. That's what math is. I'm like, I know that much. But I got to check out this podcast.
It's really good.
That sounds really fun.
Yeah, I got sucked in because I remember having a time when I loved math and it made sense. And I knew how, to your point, I knew how it made sense in my world. And then we started doing algebra and I kept asking my teacher, what is X? Like, I do not understand. What is this X supposed to be? And I wish in that moment that teacher had like transformed it and given a real world example instead of just saying like, it's unknown. And I was like, my little brain was going so stuck on why we were solving problems for stuff we don't know, for things that we don't understand. I was like, I don't get this. Like, whereas if she had explained it as like, this is just the missing piece of the puzzle, it probably would have made sense to me that like, oh,
right,
we're missing this piece and that's why we're doing this problem. And it took me, I struggled that whole year. It was the first time I had struggled in math. And then the next year I had to take an algebra 2 or whatever it was. And luckily I had this amazing math teacher that like got me back on track. But I'll never forget like raising my hand over and over again and being so annoying. Like, yes, I understand everything you just said and I could copy it, but I still do not understand what is X.
Yeah.
I'm sure this poor woman like just wanted to go home and have cocktails with her girlfriends versus explain X to me.
Yeah, I think that's very similar to my experience. And I remember liking my math teachers and feeling like they did a good job doing so much. Like I always felt intrigued in class and I wanted to keep learning, but I could feel my brain hurting and I could feel it. I could feel that I had all these questions and they weren't really being answered. So I just kept on doing my homework and taking the test and memorizing formulas. But I kind of told myself, well, this is the last thing I'm going to do math or continue taking classes because it just, like, I understand the point of statistics. I really like that class, but I just couldn't see the point anymore of taking those other courses. And maybe, that's okay. There are other people that can do calculus and use that. But as someone, as a learner, I do feel like that's an area that I would love to go back to. Same thing with chemistry.
Yes.
I feel like I really struggled in that course too, and don't really quite understand the chemical world, which is everything. And I don't know. Those are classes I would like to take now, and maybe my brain would better understand them, and maybe I would have a teacher that also could contextualize the material a little bit better for me.
Or even just have the context yourself in some things, right? So you could ask the questions differently, because I think it's so hard when you don't know what you don't know to even ask the questions, to make the connections between what's on the board and where your head's at, because it looks like a foreign language sometimes. And if you don't have one word that you know how to translate, you're like, well, I guess I'll ask the next guy.
I'll just sit here.
Oh, maybe we'll get to point at pictures soon, and it'll make sense.
Yeah.
The other thing that I find really interesting is how in the U.S. we underpay all of our teachers across the board, and they are such an influence and factor in not just current generations, but how the U.S. is going to look in generations from now. And I find it so interesting how other countries like Finland, who are really well known for, making it be very competitive to be a teacher and like well paid. I don't get it why we think in the U.S. that like teaching should almost be a volunteer career path.
Yeah, it's, and I know it varies from state to state. And the one thing that is very helpful is that we still have unions that help fight for teachers to get better pay and more benefits and smaller class sizes, because that also means that we spend less time. If we have smaller class sizes, we spend less time grading and doing classroom management, and we're essentially getting paid more for what we're doing in that sense too. Without the unions, we would have none of that. But even so, it shouldn't take a union fighting so hard to just get what seems to be deserved,
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the thing is, so I've seen on Facebook, and I've seen those little those like little worksheets that get passed around about like how much a teacher is actually paid, which is hardly anything if you factor in all of the work outside of the classroom. And we technically, a lot of teachers get summers off and holidays and weekends, but first of all, we're working on the weekends, and most of the time, if we aren't teaching a summer school class, we are using the summer to prepare for the whole school year. And we're using the summer to go to conferences and to read and do professional development work so that we become better educators.
Do research.
So we really don't. Yeah. We have to, if we're going to stay at, keep abreast on all of the material, so that we don't just get stuck in our old ways. We have to always be learning new things, and that happens year round. So, and we're not getting paid for that. So yeah, I don't know what the answer is. I mean, it does feel like the only thing we can do is just keep standing up for what we're doing and saying, hey, we need to put more into education. And, public education is paid for by the state, paid for through our taxes and all that. But we could allocate more money to education, and we should. I mean, the U.S. is not number one when it comes to education, as you said. And it's not consistent countrywide. There are some states and some districts that are able to devote more money, more resources in paying their teachers and in having better equipped classrooms and smaller class sizes. And some districts and some states really don't have that. So even education across the country is extremely varied. And some children, some students get really bad educations in the U.S., and that needs to be taken care of. We do need to put more money into education for sure.
Well, and I think that there's also the misconception that as a teacher, you're just there to provide material. But the reality is that as a teacher, you're teaching students, you're part counselor, you're part cheerleader. Like teachers are people that are approved through our culture to go to with your problems and to tell big things to, right? Like a teacher is a safe person that you're allowed to tell if shit's going on in your life. And I don't think that stops regardless of what age you're teaching. And I don't think we put into effect that teaching isn't just going to work and doing your job and coming home. It's being committed to these people having opportunities and having their best life and getting it, and not just like passing people, but like having each individual get it before they move on. And it's so much more work in the sense that besides all the prep work and staying on top of things and being, an expert in your field, you also need to be able to walk into a classroom and like leave anything that you've got going on in your life outside, because you have to just be like a clean slate for them. And
yeah, absolutely.
You don't need to do that as an accountant or as a CEO.
I mean, maybe. Yeah, I don't think it's not the same. I mean, I think that if anyone's going to be good at their job, they do kind of have to leave that stuff out.
Yeah.
But you're right, because being a teacher, dealing with humans in that field is so much different than some other fields. Yeah, when we walk into the classroom, we have to be fully present to, not just deliver the material and to execute all of the lessons for that day and in the correct pacing. We have to answer questions that students have, and then we have address all of the things that students have going on in their lives that prevent them from usually succeeding in the classroom. Like all of that stuff comes up. You can tell that something's going on if a student is not turning work in or not attending class often or on time. And I want to talk to that student, like, hey, what's going on? And you almost always there's something to uncover, and it doesn't even have to be uncovered. They just come out and tell you what's going on. So yeah, you're right. We do kind of act as like counselors and mentors and friends. And I think that's why I really like teaching at the college level, because I feel the least restricted in having that one-on-one kind of relationship with my students. That goes beyond just English teacher and student taking that class, but I feel like I can be more than that to my students. And teaching at the college level, I really, I'm dealing with people, again, that are like 18. Some students are younger, like 15 or 16, but they're either 18 or I've had students that are in their 70s.
Yeah.
So I get to form those friendships and relationships with people. But it is a lot more work as an educator than just, prepping and grading and teaching in the classroom. It's like so much more.
Completely. Every year must be so exciting for you to meet a whole new batch of students. As you're seeing these new fresh faces coming in, what leaves you feeling optimistic about where the world is going?
Yeah, that's the really cool thing is it's not even every year, it's every semester. So even every like 15 weeks or 20 weeks, I have a bunch of new students. I mean, if I'm teaching 4 to 5 classes a semester, that's, on average 120 new students every few months. So
wow.
Yeah. Some students are repeat students, I often, and Matt experiences as well. Like it's nice to have the same student who took you last year or the previous semester take your next class. But for the most part, we just get to meet so many cool people. And maybe because I am a person that likes variety, I like that. And because I'm someone who likes people, I like getting to know new people. And then carrying that friendship or that relationship on past that semester. So what's really exciting is when students come to the classroom and they get to offer something new that I have not experienced. They get to teach me about new music or new cool creative projects that they're doing. And they get to teach me about what's going on in the world that I may not know about because I'm in my little like bubble of work and my own life. So that's something that is really kind of nice and is an advantage of just meeting so many people from all walks of life, from different parts of the country, international students, people of all ages and backgrounds and religions and ethnicities. So it's pretty cool.
Obviously, when people think about, revolutions and protest movements and like culture changing, they always seem to start at the university space. I think partly because that's where, dialogue is encouraged and people are actually having debates every day. And you're also getting a mix of, knowledge and hope and aspirations, like all combined. It's like a good, it's a good mixing pot of all the parts of the recipe you need to get people to want to take action and want to change things. How have you seen the women's movement and Me Too and the other, concerns of the moment showing up on your campuses, maybe versus what we've seen on the media?
That's interesting because, well, for one, I'm an adjunct, so I don't unfortunately get to spend as much time on one campus as I would like because I am kind of bouncing around from campus to campus. So I am a little sometimes out of the loop in terms of campus events and organizations. And I think also because I teach at two of the schools I teach at are community colleges, there is a little less organized activism than we would see at a 4-year university. That being said, I think I see a lot of the activist mindset come out in just dialogue with students. So students will be writing about it. They'll be writing about a particular topic or a personal event that has happened to them, and you get to see their mindset about, or their perspective about things like Me Too or Black Lives Matter, and their understanding of the organizations and the movements and their part in it. Mm-hmm. I mean, again, I don't know that a lot of my students are very active, like in these sort of big group organizations, but you see it play out more in their lives. So, and I don't know, that's something that I wonder if that is because it's a community college that I'm generally at. And because a lot of these students also work quite a bit. They work multiple jobs, they have families, they have kids. So they kind of have less time to organize and be part of that. But it's certainly a conversation that we're having quite a bit. I know a lot of English teachers, they choose topics in their classrooms that are more activist oriented on the surface. They talk a lot about gender and race and equality and things like that. And I kind of stay away from those topics on the surface in my class, almost because I feel like it's hard for me to wrap my mind around, or I can't choose just one to talk about. So
Sure.
Like it's a little unwieldy for me. But there's plenty of room in our conversations about other things to talk about those topics. Like when we talk about food in my freshman 101 writing courses, we talk about workers' rights. We talk about immigration, just because so many people that are in our food industry, or industrial agricultural industries, are immigrants, legal and otherwise. And we talk about the poor treatment of workers and the lack of pay and the lack of repercussions for companies that hire illegal immigrants. All the repercussions are on the people themselves, the employees, and not on the companies. We talk about environmentalism. So I think we cover a lot of that by talking about other topics. And students are interested in, and I think the younger generation really does have a pretty strong sense of what needs to happen, sort of what is privilege, what inequities do we see in our society, and how can we maybe fix them. I feel like that comes up quite a bit in our conversations.
Well, and I imagine, when you're first, we do not give community colleges enough credit for what they provide as a resource to our communities. Not only for having more affordable education, but accessible education for the whole variety of people that you've been mentioning. And I think that I'm glad that the conversation seems to be changing. Now, I don't know if it's changing everywhere because, I grew up in the Northeast, in Massachusetts and Pennsylvania, where, going to a 4-year degree was what everybody did, or college, and everyone was shooting to get into a premier institution, if not Ivy League. Like that's just what you did. And education was like the thing. So like if you're out in Boston, it's very common to meet someone and be like, cool, where'd you go to school? Because that's what everyone did. And so it kind of gives you a reference point for like, what are they about and where do they come from? And when I moved to California, it was the first time that I had experienced a work environment where everyone had not gone to college. And I was like, what? Like, this still happens?
Yeah.
Like, how did you get a job? Just because I was brought up through the thinking that like you had to go to college to get a job. And with how much it's cost and how it's putting so many people into debt now, and then they don't even end up using that degree, I really think that there's so much more opportunity for people to take advantage of a community college experience, to figure out more what you want, to have an affordable education, and not feel the pressure of experimenting with education and knowing that you're spending so much money on it. Because everyone doesn't need to go to college anymore to have the life that they want. But the reason I was going on a tangent about this is that there's so many people today that are saying, maybe not so many. So there are some loud voices that are saying how college and universities are this like cesspool of forced liberalism.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I always am just like, what? Like, I don't think that's accurate. And maybe I'm naive and maybe I don't know anything, but I feel like if most people who are going into politics have gone to school, we couldn't be producing an equal number of diverse opinions if every college was a cesspool of liberalism. I don't know why I can't say that word.
That's a great point. I mean, if people are going through school, and coming out with a variety of opinions and perspectives, then it just doesn't make sense that college is just, created by and for the liberal elite, and that educators are brainwashing, the youth to vote Democrat or become some sort of, come out as like liberal in terms of political affiliation. I think that there is some truth to when you go to college, there's complete truth. And when you go to college, you are exposed to a variety of ideas.
Yeah.
And sometimes that means that often that means people change and they no longer think the way that they used to. I mean, that's kind of the goal.
Right. Regardless of where you end up, that's the goal. Just to have new ideas put into your frame of reference.
Right. And to be able to be a critical thinker and evaluator of life and of society and of the problems that we encounter, and we use college not just as a way to get that degree so you can get hired, but it's to expand our minds. That's what education is really about. So I think that is sometimes a talking point that you mentioned of some people who don't really stop and think about what college is really meant to do. Yeah. And certainly there are going to be a lot of liberal professors, especially in the humanities. I mean, I know plenty of, I'm fairly liberal, and I know plenty of other educators that personally have very liberal ideas. And I think that does seep into the classroom sometimes. And maybe it can get away from some professors, but I also don't think it's our job to be completely neutral. I mean, when I'm teaching, I try to stay away from like the political debate, kind of politics in general, but there are some key issues that I think are important that we have to talk about. And I try to let students kind of find their own voice rather than imparting my beliefs on them.
Right.
But my job also is to provide correct information and to help people locate that information. So if people are misguided in their viewpoints because of the wrong information, then I do think it's my job to point that out. But it isn't my job to tell them how to or what to think, but it is my job to tell them how to think or to teach them how to think.
Yeah, and to create a space where having dialogue about differing opinions is okay. Mm-hmm. Like it blows my mind.
We have to do that.
Yes, and I don't understand why we don't think like having the debate isn't the issue. Like that's what we should be doing. Mm-hmm. So instead of having the discussions and the debates and allowing people to have different opinions and not make them wrong for it, but instead allow people to articulate them, we're just not having the conversations. And I'm like, well, I don't get this. Like, this is the opposite of what democracy is supposed to be.
Yeah, we have to have those conversations. And that is happening. I beyond teaching English 101, I also teach usually like the next level English course as well, which is usually like a critical thinking course. And that's where we do dive into more contemporary issues, and students have the opportunity to talk about really kind of those deep, more controversial issues, and to write about them. And again, it's about facilitating that dialogue, and helping people find their voice and kind of examine what they believe and why that is. It isn't to say that their beliefs are wrong, but it's to say, hey, let's take a step back and examine what beliefs do we hold and why, and do we have information that actually supports those beliefs, or are they just sort of unfounded opinions? And can we let go of them if we're presented with new information? And that dialogue, that discussion has to happen, and it goes so much more beyond a political conversation, even though so many topics do come up in politics.
Well, I think that's just natural because politics all ties back to the things we care about and the way the world works and the way that our communities interact. So I think it's impossible to not have political conversations when politics is all of us, right? Like it's... Yeah,
I mean, it's how we choose to govern ourselves. And so you're right, that it is very important to just surviving in today's world.
Yeah. When you're not, with Matt and keeping healthy, and you're not grading papers or going to school, what else are you doing that gets you excited and is for your own personal, like, fun and development?
I feel like that takes up so much of my time, what you just listed. I really, one thing that I used to do a handful of years ago with Matt is we got really into meditating and using that as a practice to help become more present in our daily lives. So that's not something that I am currently doing, but it is something that I would like to get back into. Not because I feel that I lack focus or presence right now, but I just know the value in taking some time out every day to meditate and to just sit and to kind of be thoughtless, to clear my mind. And that's just like exercising daily or almost every day and eating healthy. That's just another practice that is super beneficial to my life. So that's something that I like to do, to get back into, and I keep telling myself that. And but I have yet to carve out time to do that when it's really easy to do, actually.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of some other things. I'm also starting to read more again. I admit that with all of the other stuff that I do with work and reading, I kind of put that on the back burner sometimes. And so listening to more podcasts and starting to just pick up books again in the evening instead of just watching TV or something. Those are the things that I'm kind of finding myself going back to once again.
Yeah.
And I think now, because I'm pregnant, I'm also spending a lot of time researching and talking to women, who not just women, but parents, but talking to my friends who have kids, and kind of learning a lot about being a parent, because that's all new to me. And I have this human a new human that's about to enter our lives. So I think I'm spending a lot of time doing that lately too. It's just like preparing myself to be a parent.
Has being pregnant changed your perspective on things in the world or of yourself?
Getting pregnant has really calmed me down quite a bit. I've been really appreciating sleeping a lot more.
Yeah.
And feeling very, very balanced, because I know balance is everything, and balance is how do I say that? Balance is just super crucial to living a healthy, happy life. But now that I am not just taking care of myself, but another human, I think that's really solidified that for me. And so I feel much calmer, and I feel generally just softer. And I feel like I know it may not be clear on this podcast, but I feel like in general, I talk a lot less, and I kind of try to listen to other people a little bit more. So that's kind of, I feel like my demeanor has changed a little bit, for not the worst, for sure.
Yeah.
In terms of perspective, I don't feel like my perspective has changed much yet, but I know it will. And I don't know what that will look like, but I know it will once I have a kid.
Yeah.
I, once I have a human being out and about in the world that I have to take care of, and to share that experience with my husband too. We're really looking forward to it. So yeah, we know that there's a lot to be learned, and that it's just this whole new adventure for us. But what that's going to look like, I don't know yet.
Well, I think you guys are going to be awesome parents. So,
oh, thank you.
Yeah, of course. You're so generous and aware and compassionate as it is that I imagine that's exactly how you would be with them. So I'm excited to see you as parents. I'm excited to meet the baby and have more little humans that we get to spoil.
I really appreciate that. Yeah, we're excited, and that's the cool thing is, Matt and I were never sure if we were going to have kids. You know, we met when we were young. We definitely, it's definitely not a priority. And when I met Matt, he was pretty sure he didn't want to have kids, and I was okay with that. You know, I was like, well, I want to be with you, like, and I have so many other things in my life that I want to do. That's not even a concern of mine. But now we're at this point where we did decide to start a family and to bring a child into this world. And I think it could be really easy to become very pessimistic about doing that. You know, like there could be very easy to just focus on all of the scary things and the actual real problems that still exist today, and new problems that are being created as we speak. But at the same time, I feel like we have the support of our families, and we have a group of friends that are just like you, very supportive and loving and devoted to changing the world for the better, that I can't imagine that raising a child in that environment is going to do anything except great things.
Yeah.
And I don't know we're going to have a son. I don't know what he is going to be like exactly, but I just feel confident that he's going to be surrounded by people that are the best kind of people to be around, and that he will have such good role models beyond me and Matt, like well beyond us, that he could look to that really help guide him. And so that's what I'm excited about. In addition to just meeting him and getting to know his personality, like seeing how everyone sort of takes to him, which I think will be wonderful.
Mm-hmm. We've been asking every guest where they fit on the powerful lady scale. 0 being average, everyday human, and 10 being super powerful lady. How do you feel today, and how do you feel on average?
Wow. It's funny because I don't feel like I feel like I walk through life very confident in my skin, very comfortable in my skin now. I wasn't always like that.
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of anxiety growing up. I'll give you the long answer. I wasn't diagnosed with OCD, but I'm sure that I was some sort of spectrum when it came to having obsessive compulsive disorder.
Mm-hmm.
And I really suffered from sleeplessness and restlessness and existential anxiety. And when things didn't go my way, I really, really struggled because I was just like perfectionist. And something happened. Like, I think a handful of things happened in my life, especially right around like 18 to 19 to 20. And I no longer feel sort of imprisoned by my type A OCD behavior, whatever you want to call it. I feel like I can channel it for things that are very good for me and for others. So I feel very comfortable in my skin. And I think there's a lot of power that can come from being happy and feeling comfortable and feeling safe and able to socialize and communicate with others and to stand up for myself. I don't know how to answer your question of like a scale of 0 to 10. I feel like in terms of what I do with my life, it's not always big and spectacular. I don't always find myself doing these huge sort of projects. I don't ever see myself as getting famous.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that within the people that I know in my life, I feel like
You're famous in our group.
Famous and within our group. Yeah. I feel like people can come to me and talk to me about anything, and that I come off as open and always willing to try to help when I can.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know, that it doesn't really answer your question directly, but I do feel powerful, and in the sense that I feel very empowered by the people around me.
Yeah.
And don't feel like I have to struggle so much to just exist. And that, to me, that means a lot now.
Yeah. No, that's great. I think that it's really interesting to see how people respond to that question, because everyone has been different. And what I want people to get is that being powerful doesn't mean anything grand or celebrity status or any of that stuff. Living a powerful life means that you're living a life that you're proud of, that you feel satisfied in, and that you feel like you are the one in the driver's seat versus something or someone else. And
that's a great definition. I really like that.
Good. Lauren Bond stamped approved.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if with that definition, I'd say yes. I feel very powerful. I really like that.
Well, I think it's so important.
That's beautifully said.
Yeah, because I mean, my mission with Powerful Ladies is to make I Can't go extinct, and I am always inspired by the people who are doing so many amazing things for their family and friends and communities that don't get talked about. And we spend so much time talking about knuckleheads who are either creating like a whirlwind of negativity, or they're actually not doing anything. And I'm like, why are they the ones making any money? Like, this is dumb. Like, I would rather, be celebrating the people who are leaving the world a better place and doing it anonymously in the big scale, because those are the people who actually leave a bigger mark behind and who are setting up whole communities to win.
That makes so much sense. I mean, maybe we choose to focus on these other people that, like you said, create this whirlwind of negativity or are just not doing much of anything. Maybe there's a reason that we dwell on that. Maybe because we see potential in people, and when they fail to meet that, we get frustrated, and then it becomes like a focus of ours. Yeah. But you're absolutely right. I mean, instead choosing to focus on the people that really make a difference and that are positive, and loving and open-minded, those are the people that we should highlight. And I mean, that's absolutely what you're doing with this podcast, and what I think a lot of other people are doing too.
Yes.
There are some cool photography projects that focus on just cool humans, and there's a lot of positive. There's a lot of evidence of positive change out in the world if we just can look for it.
Yes. Look for it and share it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So who are women or people in general that have been big influences on you and kind of carved out who you are today?
Well, kind of in line with what we were saying, a lot of just women specifically, but I mean, honestly, like you said, people, just women in my life that I am really just proud of what they're doing. A lot of my friends are kind of at this point in their lives where they are branching out, they are starting businesses, and they're going back to school while they're raising a child. by themselves. You know, I have a handful of women in my life that I can think of that are just really kind of killing it out there and are doing it with like a good attitude and not always with a lot of resources either. So I think I probably say that I draw a lot of my inspiration from just the women that I meet in my life, that are like my friends, and who encourage me to do more with what I'm doing as well. And it's not limited to just women. I mean, my husband Matthew is someone who is just always, like, from the day that I met him, just such an intriguing person. And he I feel like, I mean, I think the reason that he's such a good partner is that he always encourages me to be a better person and to like do the right thing and to be as like strong and as healthy as I can be, and not to use excuses when I struggle with something. So, I mean, he certainly is a source of inspiration for me as well. And I read a lot, and so when I read a lot, I really take on those ideas and kind of integrate them into my own lives. But I'd say the people that really like touch me the most are just the people, like my circle of friends that I really just am happy to have in my life.
Me too. I feel so lucky and honored that I have had the privilege of having so many amazing people cross paths with me at all the different phases of my life, and especially where I'm at right now. And, you know, I want everyone to know that they can find their people. Sometimes it takes more work than other places, but they're there. And I've also gone through phases where I felt really alone and, you know, frustrated that I couldn't connect with the people that were around me. And then it just makes it that much sweeter when it's easy.
I think that's very true. I mean, there have been moments in my life where I don't think I wasn't happy because I was in this very like isolated space because I didn't feel like the people that I was with, even if they weren't, you know, bad people, they just weren't my people. And that's a learning experience for sure. And you have to like learn for yourself who your people are and to learn to walk away when it's not right.
Yeah. Yep.
And it will happen. You know, you will meet, and I think if one is open, they will very quickly meet people that they really connect with and can learn from. And sometimes you can connect with someone and not learn very much from them. And sometimes you can learn a lot from someone that you just don't want to be around, really.
Fact.
And so I think it's important to just recognize that and be appreciative for what you can take from that situation, or not take, but how you can grow from a situation in interacting with certain people. But also learn that, you know, you will find those people out there that really help you grow and you help them, and it's fun and you guys click on a lot of different levels. And you can be there for one another when times are hard. So I think it happens, and we can find that in a partner. We can find that in a group of friends, siblings, our parents. Like, that's one thing that I really rediscovered is like, as an adult, learning who my parents are. And of course they're constantly changing just like I am, but I'm always really thankful that I was raised by parents that really let me figure out myself. And now as an adult, it's really nice to kind of go back to them and be closer to them in a way that I, you know, maybe wasn't when I was in my late teens or early 20s. When I was figuring myself out, they let me do that. They let me go and kind of just do my own thing. And they were always really just supportive and confident that I would find my way. And now I can go back and spend time with them. And Matt's parents are the same way. And I think we're both pretty lucky to have people like them in our lives.
Yes. There are a few questions that have come up a couple times from people following Powerful Ladies, or even guests that we've had that I'd love to get your opinion on. The first is similar to what we were just talking about. So if someone is struggling with finding their people and maybe they moved to a new place, what do you recommend for being an adult and finding new friends?
Oh man, that is a hard one. Because at first, on the surface, I feel like people just walked into my life, and that's how I found them. But actually, that's not the only way that happens. I think being really present and open to new experience, and I don't want to use the word social because that's social and extroverted is not what I mean.
Yeah.
But putting yourself out there and being really who you are, but also being very open and mindful about how you come off to others, all of that will attract people to you that could potentially be friends.
Like, what does that look like in actions?
What does that look like? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to go out and do things too. I mean, I think I am a pretty extroverted person. Matthew is maybe not so much, but he still very much puts himself out there. And that means, going out and trying new things. Like one big thing that we started doing is, a handful of years ago, and this is because of, your boyfriend, Jesse, is we went to festivals. Mm-hmm. And, Jesse had invited me and Matt to go to Lightning in a Bottle back in 2011, and we didn't. And it just didn't seem like our kind of thing. And then the following year, Jesse invited us again, and we're like, yeah, let's try it. We don't know what we're getting ourselves into, but let's
right.
go. Yeah, we like music. Sure, let's go. And it was a whole new world of people that are very friendly and open, the kind of people where you meet someone and instead of going in to shake their hand, they give you a hug. And that could be kind of invasive for some people, I recognize, but it was really eye-opening for me. And it just being in the presence of really open, kind of wildly creative people really opened something up in me. So I found that we loved going to festivals because it gave us a chance to just meet lots of people, and some people we don't ever talk to ever again. But a handful of our friends are people that we met at festivals, and we still to this day hang out outside of that setting. Mm-hmm. And I think another way to do it is to use social media as, I don't do this as much, but I think people could use social media to meet new people and expose themselves to new ideas, at the very least. And I'm trying to think of some other ways that you can push yourself out there. I think just when you're out and about, if you go to the grocery store, not just being on your phone or in your own head, going about your day, but actually talking to the cashiers and, paying attention to people that are selling, girls selling Girl Scout cookies. And I think that it's always surprising what kind of conversations you can have with quote unquote strangers if you are just willing to slow down a little bit and make eye contact and talk to them and not just be stuck in whatever it is you're doing, which is usually, I feel like, unfortunately, on our phones now.
Yeah. Whenever I go out and I do a lot of eating by myself when I'm traveling, I always go to a place that has a bar, and then I sit at the bar and I make friends with the bartenders, and then I make friends with the people who are around me. And even if I never talk to them again, or if it's one in my neighborhood and you start becoming friendly with them, it's just a way to have conversation versus sitting by yourself. And especially if you're new to a neighborhood, it's a cool way to just you can ask them all these questions because they're like a hairstylist. They know all these secrets about the people that come in the community and what's going on. And I feel like there's a safety in it, in confessing to a bartender or your server, I'm new here. What should I do? What's going on? And they're usually down to tell you because, I imagine they'd rather have that conversation than just keep asking people if they want more water.
Yeah, no, that's definitely, I think, like a huge thing that one can do. It's like you said, even if you're out eating by yourself, like that, if anything, that's like the perfect opportunity to meet new people or to learn about a community, especially if you're new. Like you said, talking to the bartender, the server. I mean, I think about a handful of people when Matt and I moved to Redlands from Riverside about 8 years ago. At the time, our friends were generally some people that we went to college with, and we moved and we knew no one in Redlands at all, and it was kind of exciting. Some of our friends had already moved. Our college friends had already moved to other parts of the state, so we kind of needed to meet new people anyway. So when we moved to Redlands, that's kind of when it all happened. I would say we met one group of friends because we went to a wine bar and it was super crowded. And this one couple, they said, "Hey, why don't you guys sit with us?" And they're pretty much the same age as us, and they grew up in the area or in the town, and we hadn't. And that was maybe 5 or 6 years ago. They invited us to their wedding within a few months. And and to this day, we're still, good friends with them. And then we've met a lot of their local friends that way. And then another sort of core group of our friends, we met because of one person who started talking to us at a rock climbing gym. And now we're into rock climbing, and we're really close with those people and that whole group. And then a third group was actually a former student of mine, and she's also a rock climber. But she took me, and then she took Matthew, and then when she was no longer a student, we started, just catching up with her and met all of her friends that way. So sometimes it happens in unlikely places, but if we're off our phones and if we are willing to talk to random people, even if just about something kind of surface level, you never know where it's going to take you.
I agree.
And you might not go anywhere, and you may not be friends with those people for very long. But I don't know. I feel like it can happen if you just sort of look up and kind of stay open to that sort of experience.
Mm-hmm. The second question I would love to get your feedback on is going back to where we started. And if someone doesn't think that they're a good reader, or maybe they're a slow reader, or they just, can't focus on reading, how do you recommend they start if that's something that they would like to expand their abilities in?
I think it just takes practice. So, you become a stronger reader, for instance, by just reading a lot. So you have to find something that is intriguing to you to read. I mean, if that is, I think I'd recommend you just choose a topic that is something you'd like to learn more about. I think fiction is not something a lot of people are interested in, and so I wouldn't always recommend, my favorite books that I read that are fiction, because it's a little bit harder to customize, I think. Mm-hmm. And again, some people just don't, I think, always see the benefit of reading fiction. They're just like, it just seems kind of worthless. When I don't think that's the case for me, but I think a lot more people can kind of relate to nonfiction. And so what I usually do is if I meet someone, usually a student who's asking for like recommendations, like, hey, I want to read more, but I'm not sure what, I just ask them what they're interested in and then go from there. So I think that's key to just becoming a better reader, is to just do it more. I mean, it's the same way if you're going to get better at soccer, you need to practice.
Yeah.
It may take a long time to get good, but just doing it, I think is that's the hard work that is involved in just becoming better at something. And so that's how you become a better reader. That's how you become a better writer, is to sit down and just write. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be pure gold. Just get your ideas out. And of course, there's a benefit of working with someone, like taking your essay to a tutor and saying, does this make sense? And having the tutor recommend moving things around or asking, kind of having a conversation, and the tutor can ask the writer questions like, what do you mean by this?
Mm-hmm.
You need to state it more clearly. Like, there are definitely tools that coaches can offer, and coaches are very important, but I think a lot of it is just putting the work in yourself. You will get better eventually.
And for everyone who's listening, what are some final things that you want them to be able to take away and to know?
I mean, okay, so when I was preparing to talk to you for this podcast, one question that I had thought about was, what's one favorite quote or something like that? And it's interesting because even though I spend so much time with words, I'm not really one to remember key quotations. Like, I think I could probably honestly say I would not be a great actor and trying to remember lines. Maybe I could if I put my mind to it. But generally when I hear little like sayings, I tend to internalize the meaning and sort of, integrate the idea into my life. But there is one that I do sort of kind of live by, that I remember and I think about, and it's a very short line said by Ram Dass, and you're familiar with Ram Dass, I think, because I gave you that.
You gave me a book for my birthday.
That
yes.
book by him. But he is a Westerner who used to work for Harvard. He was a psychologist by training. And he was famous because when he went by the name Richard Alpert, when he was working at Harvard, he worked with Timothy Leary, and they did a bunch of acid trials in the 60s. But he went to India. He kind of got fired, and that whole thing kind of blew up. And Ram Dass, or Richard Alpert, decided he needed to search for something more meaningful in his life. And he went to India and he found a guru, and he came back, and he's very much responsible for bringing a lot of Hindu, but a lot of like kind of Indian wisdom to the West, and yoga and that sort of thing. And he just has, he is someone that I would, and Matt, I think, would consider like kind of like our informal guru, like somebody who we've read a lot of books by, and he has a podcast, and we listen to a lot of his lectures. And one thing he says is this: treat everyone you meet like God in drag.
Ooh.
And yeah, I think it's a really good way. I mean, it certainly makes sense to me to live my life by, because it's a kind of a recipe for how you should treat people. Because when you meet people, it's really easy to just see that surface, right? That costume that people are wearing, what their job is, how they hold themselves, are they a man or a woman, or how are they, what's their age, like what roles in life do they play? Like, we try to like understand all of that by just like looking at someone and getting to know them very briefly. But there's so much more to humans and to individuals, and it's really hard to ever understand another human being. And it can just take, lifetimes to understand ourselves, let alone someone else. So if we treat every single person we meet as if they are God, as if there is this sort of complex entity that is all-knowing and just full of everything the universe has to offer, I think it would change the way that we treat people. So
I totally agree.
It's just, I don't know, it's just a kind of a cool concept. I never really thought about it that way until I heard him say it that way.
Well, if you believe that everyone has the full abilities of the universe inside of them, as much as they have their ego inside of them, then like it's the same concept, like we are stardust, God is in you. It's all saying the same message of within every person is the possibility to create greatness. And if you can see their light, it changes everything, because it's so easy to not want to see the light in people that frustrate you or, do things to hurt you or you think are idiots. But if you can see the light inside of them, you can see the God inside of them, it changes everything, because you start looking for something different.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Well said. And I think that it also allows us to be more, maybe pious isn't the answer, or the word, but it stops us in our tracks. If we see that, if we can stop and see that in someone, then we are restricting our own ego reaction temporarily.
Yes.
The way that we would kneel before God, if we met him or her, if we see each person as meeting as a chance to meet God, then I think it would change our behavior and just help us get out of our ego a little bit more. And then to recognize that in ourselves too.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think that is such a beautiful way to wrap up this podcast. Thank you so much for being a guest. I've loved our conversation. I love you and Matt, and I'm so excited I get to see you in a few weeks. And I'm
very excited for that too.
Yeah. Thank you just for being a yes to me and to Powerful Ladies.
Thank you so much for this opportunity and for inviting me to do this. And it's such a cool project and just a really cool opportunity. And I'm really thankful for you, to be in my life as well. So this has been great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Teachers are one of the most important people in our communities. Our whole life is about learning, whether we see it that way or not. And to have people dedicated to enhancing our experience, committed to our development, and excited to share their knowledge is critical, not just to our own life experience, but the well-being of the whole community. Lauren is one of those ideal teachers. She cares about her students as whole people. I hope this episode has left you thinking more about what you can do to support the teachers in your life, opportunities you have to be a teacher yourself, and why it's important that collectively we remember to have our teachers thriving. If you want to connect, follow, or support Lauren, you can email her at bondlaurenkelly@gmail.com with the exact spelling available in our show notes at thepowerfulladies.com. If you'd like to support the work that we're doing here at Powerful Ladies, there's a couple of ways you can do that. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Leave a review on any of these platforms. Share the show with all the powerful ladies and gentlemen in your life. Join our Patreon account. Check out the website, thepowerfulladies.com, to hear more inspiring stories, get practical tools to be your most powerful, get 15% off your first order in the Powerful Ladies shop, or donate to the Powerful Ladies One Day of Giving campaign. And of course, follow us on Instagram at Powerful Ladies. For show notes and to get the links to the books, podcasts, and people we talk about, go to thepowerfulladies.com. I'd like to thank our producer, composer, and audio engineer, Jordan Duffy. She's one of the first female audio engineers in the podcasting world, if not the first, and she also happens to be the best. We're very lucky to have her. She's a powerful lady in her own right. In addition to taking over the podcasting world, she's a singer-songwriter working on her next album, and she's one of my sisters. So it's amazing to be creating this with her, and I'm so thankful that she finds time in her crazy busy schedule to make this happen. It's a testament to her belief in what we're creating through Powerful Ladies, and I'm honored that she shares my vision. Thank you all so much for listening. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode. I can't wait for you to hear it. Until then, I hope you're taking on being powerful in your life. Go be awesome and up to something you love.